We have a really strange mixture of biblical theology, the supernatural world, the unseen world, mixed in with all this UFO stuff, sightings, alleged alien contact and abductions. What do we do with all this? How do we process it?
Zechariah Sitchin was this guy who wrote these books about a planet called Nibiru. He had transcribed the Sumerian text, and he believed that the history of the people from Sumer, what they were trying to relay was that human beings were the product of accelerated evolution, and that beings from a planet called Nibiru, that's on a 3,600 year elliptical course towards the Earth. This was Zechariah Sitchin. He wrote these books called, I think it was The 12th Planet was one of them, and it was all about these ancient Sumerians. And one of the weirdest things about it is, like, these people had these clay tablets that had like a detailed map of the solar system. I mean, 6,000 years ago. They carved.
You'll never find the Anunnaki riding in a craft anywhere. You won't find all of the core ideas, or any of the core ideas, that Sitchin has for his mythology. So it's not very difficult to show that he's wrong. We need to be honest. The world is a lot stranger than what we think it is. There are a lot of people who just go through life thinking everything is nailed down. We've been given every answer by science, or we will be given that answer by science. There are no anomalies. There's nothing really strange that transcends the physical world. We know that isn't true. There is a spiritual world. So what we need to do is be honest. The world is a strange place. There's a lot more going on than we might think. We need to just embrace that idea and then try to process what it is that people experience, what they see, in an honest way.
Welcome to another episode of Ring Them Bells, where we exist to help you rediscover the Bible on its own terms. We found that the supernatural focus of the Bible has been suppressed, and we are bringing that back into the light. We're doing that with interviews and content from great scholars like NT Wright Tim Mackie of the BibleProject, and featured here today, Dr. Michael Heiser. Heiser is one of my all-time favorites because of his willingness and bravery to step into fringe topics and give us a biblical witness and understanding so that we can have a response to these tough topics. From time to time, you'll also see us share content from the podcast of Joe Rogan, not because we think he is a great source of truth, but also because he has a huge following and he touches on a lot of these same fringe topics that Heiser worked to expose in the light of the gospel. However, Joe Rogan is one of the great American freethinkers of our day, and I am continually seeing the Lord work on his heart. So I pray this message finds him and encourages all of our heart towards the truth about Jesus. Here today, we're going to review the work of a supposed scholar, Zechariah Chen, who made some striking claims about ancient Sumerian texts and how they relate to Genesis 6 and even the book of Enoch. Joe Rogan constantly cites Sitchin's work as a reliable source for understanding the ultimate reality of human history. Our resident scholar, Dr. Michael Heiser, did quite a bit of research through Sitchin's work, and I'm excited to let you see what he found. Also, we have a huge announcement to release to you today. You've heard me hint about it, but I wanted to confirm with all of you that Ring Them Bells has partnered with Visual First Films, and we are going to be producing a top-rate documentary going over the teachings and life of Dr. Michael Heiser. We are so excited to be working with Ruben Evans of Visual First Films. Ruben is a fan favorite here at the channel. Ruben Evans is one of the top Christian film producers of our day. He worked with Heiser on all of his best videos, including The Unseen Realm. Partnering with Ruben Evans and Visual First Films means that you guys are going to be blown away with the scope and caliber of this documentary. We are so excited about this. I want you to stay tuned for ways that you can get involved and help support this project. But for now, Take a moment to subscribe so that you're aware of all the alerts that'll be coming up and releases about this documentary and other great content that we have coming your way. So let's get started with understanding the Bible's relationship to these ancient Sumerian and Babylonian texts. We're going to find from Heiser that the Hebrew scriptures speak a strange word against and into these texts. Let's get started.
I've made the comment before that I think our doctrine of inspiration, is undermined and made vulnerable when we divorce the human element from it. Okay, the books of your Bible do not just come by mental download. The prophet's not getting up, making breakfast, gets zapped, he loses control of his mind, his automatic writing, like in the X-Files, okay? He wakes up and says, wow, I can't wait to read what I just wrote. Okay, that is not how the New Testament itself describes inspiration. But we think like the people who produced the books of the New Testament weren't thinking about anything. Like they just got zapped and downloaded. Okay, when you strip the human element out of it, when you make it this paranormal object, it's very understandable if you believe that inspiration operates this way, that you don't want people reading anything else. You don't want them exposed to what actually the writers had exposed themselves to. And so this problem, this disconnect of how to understand what's in our own Bible is a lot bigger than we sort of imagine it. You know, you're talking about centuries, millennia of a crude history of looking at the Bible in a certain way. But the effect of it is we have people who are underexposed to the context of the Bible, and then they have trouble understanding significant portions of the Watchers in its original context. I'm guessing a lot of you have never read the Enoch story, so let's just go through some of the basic parts of it. When the sons of men had multiplied, and in those days beautiful and comely daughters were born to them, and the Watchers, the sons of heaven, saw them and desired them, they said to one another, come, let us choose for ourselves wives from the daughters of men, and let us beget for ourselves children. And Shemhaza, their chief, said to them, I fear that you will not want to do this deed, and I alone shall be guilty of a great sin. So apparently it was his idea, and he's like, I don't want to only be blamed when this thing just goes to hell in a handbasket. And they all answered him and said, let us swear an oath. Let us all bind one another with a curse, that none of us turn back from this counsel until we fulfill it and do this deed. Then they all swore together and bound one another with a curse. Now, you notice the deed, again, is cast in sexual tones. You know, let's go have children. But the real crime, I don't think we should miss. Again, if unseen realm, there's actually two views of sort of the supernatural perspective of Genesis 6. I don't want to leave this section without saying this. The real crime is that they want to raise up their own nations. They want their own populations. They want to imitate God without His permission. It's kind of a Gnostic flavor to that, if you know a little bit about Gnosticism. So this is what's going to become the real issue here. They were all of them 200, and they descended in the days of Yared onto the peak of Mount Hermon. Okay, Hermon is the key location. And they called the mountain Hermon because they swore and bound one another with a curse on it. Okay, this Hermon in Hebrew is related to, it's a better way to say that, same root as Karem. Again, the devote to destruction, to put under the ban, that sort of thing. So there's an association there between the terms. These and all the others with them took for themselves wives, and among them such as they chose, they began to go into them and defile themselves through them. Again, they defiled themselves. This is a transgression of heaven and earth. To teach them sorcery and charms, and to reveal to them the cutting of roots and plants, and they conceived from them and bore to them great giants. Asael, another character, taught men to make swords of iron and weapons and shields and breastplates and every instrument of war. He showed them metals of the earth, how they should work gold to fashion it suitably, and concerning silver to fashion it for bracelets and ornaments for women. He showed them concerning antimony and eye paint and all manner of precious stones and dyes. Now you're probably thinking of the passage in 1 Peter already about the cosmetic, issue. And there was much godlessness upon the earth, and they made their ways desolate. Shemhaza taught spells and the cutting of roots. And then you get a list of which watcher taught what to people. You get this whole list. You get signs of shooting stars, signs of the earth, signs of the sun, signs of the moon. Again, astrological stuff. They all began to reveal mysteries to their wives and to their children. As men were perishing, the cry went up to heaven. So in Enoch, even in this section and elsewhere in the book, the problem with all this isn't that we know how to make something that's made of iron, or we use eye paint to make ourselves beautiful. The problem is what people did with it. It corrupted them. So it takes the problem of lust and makes it worse. It takes the problem of just any technology and makes it worse. People began to use things for self-destruction, for destruction of their fellow man, that sort of thing. So this is what the passage is going through. In a nutshell, what First Enoch is saying here is, look, we know we had this thing, the fall, and we know people are sinners. But they consistently blame the watchers for teaching people how to be even better sinners. Okay, in other words, giving them more tools to destroy themselves. Anything that we have can be used to an evil end. And that's really what Enoch is going to be angling for here. And they blame part of it on people, the fall, because of just who we are, our internal sinful impulse, the lack of, we don't have God's nature, God's character. We make choices to do evil. So people are going to get plenty of blame. But then people being taught, again, how to express their own impulses, their own wickedness in various ways. That's a big deal in Second Temple Judaism. First Enoch 9, you have 4 angels, Archangels Michael, Sariel, Raphael, and Gabriel, see the terrible events unfolding on earth. They approach God for a solution. Basically, you got to do something about this. Look at what's going on. You have to do something about this. The 4 archangels say to God in 1 Enoch 9:11, you know all things before they happen. You see these things and you permit them. And you do not tell us what we ought to do with them with regard to these things. I mean, we're here to help. What should we do? God responds in 1 Enoch 10 with the news that should sound familiar to biblical readers. This is when you get the flood. When the Most High said, the great Holy One spoke, he sent Sariel to the son of Lamech, which was Noah, saying, go to Noah and say to him in my name, hide yourself, reveal to him that the end is coming, the whole world will perish, tell him that a deluge is about to come, so on and so forth. So in the Bible, in the Old Testament, Genesis 6, 1 through 4 precedes the flood, okay? It's just that in Genesis 6, 1 to 4, those 4 verses to us, key thought here, to us, lack context. We read them and it's like, well, what does that have to do with the flood? Why are these 4 verses even here? I mean, you get to verse 5 and okay, everything that man does is wicked. We get that. And then Noah starts to have this conversation with God, and then we have the flood narrative. Well, what do the 4 verses have to do with this? We lack the context. An Israelite, again, a literate Israelite, would not have lacked the context. That's the disconnect.
In Mesopotamian thought, though, there's a story that is the backstory to all this. It's a story of a group of divine beings called the Apkallu. Now, right away, you have to think like a Mesopotamian and think like an Israelite. Israelites are your biblical crowd, followers of Yahweh, at least ostensibly. And the Mesopotamians are followers of any number of gods. Marduk is the big one, when this gets written. He's the lead deity. So you've got Israel, Mesopotamia, good and evil, all that stuff going on. Well, the Mesopotamian story of the flood includes the idea of supernatural beings coming to earth and cohabitation. But in their version, it's a good thing. This is why Babylon is known for its immorality, certainly its idolatry, for its dark arts. Okay, they were an empire. But those are good things because we're Babylon and we're great. There's no one like us. We are the top dog of civilization. And what the Babylonians wanted people to know is the reason we're so wonderful and so awesome and so unbeatable is because the gods helped us create Babylon. They give the gods credit. And in the Apkallu story, the Apkallu are thought of as culture heroes by the Mesopotamians, the great civilizers of their civilization, the ones who taught the Babylonians all sorts of things to build their power. So they're heroes, they're good guys. These 7 sages, there are 7 of them, were created by other gods in the abyss. That ought to ring a bell. Okay? They're created in the abyss. One of their jobs was to ensure the correct functioning of heaven and earth. They had great power, great knowledge, and they're going to teach humans things, ostensibly to create civilization. But again, the Jews look at this and they go, this is horrible. We shouldn't have random bloodshed. We shouldn't have immorality. We shouldn't be worshiping other gods. We shouldn't be doing any of this garbage. But if you're a Babylonian, you're like, yeah, sign me up for that. The wisdom taught by the Apkallu to the Babylonians corresponds precisely to the forbidden knowledge that you'll see listed in Enoch. That's not a coincidence. Again, negative view, positive view. The Apkallu, archaeologists have discovered little figurines, because the Apkallu, again, they're viewed as good guys. They're not viewed as sinister demonic figures by the Babylonians. They would make figures of the Apkallu and bury them in foundations of buildings to protect the building, from whatever the Babylonians didn't like. And their name for those sculptures was Matsare in Akkadian. It means watchers. That's not a coincidence. Again, that's Enoch's term for the sons of God who fell before the flood. It's not a coincidence. He's getting it from Babylonian material. The higher gods in the Babylonian story one day, because the Apkallu are kind of mid-level deities. They have important jobs, but they're not the ones who make the decisions. They're not the ones who call the shots. They just do stuff. They're real smart and do stuff. So the higher gods decide, we're kind of sick of humans. You read Enuma Elish or the Gilgamesh epic or something like that, you're going to get this story. We're kind of sick of humans. They make a lot of noise. They just, this was just a bad idea. So, you know what? We're going to get rid of them. We're going to send a flood and wipe them out. And then the gods, high-five each other and, great idea, what? Let's just get rid of them. Well, the Apkallu hear this, and they're like, you got to be kidding. I mean, we've invested a lot of time in these people. We've taught them all sorts of things. How in the world, all that work is going to be lost if we just, if they just get destroyed. So they decide, well, okay, we can think of a way to sort of transmit our knowledge to human survivors of the flood, and then we can sort of start up again. Our work will not be lost. Now, the Era epic, which is a Mesopotamian text, is a key source for this.
It's from the work of Zechariah Sitchin, who was one of the guys who translated the ancient Sumerian texts. And he believed that the human race is a product of accelerated evolution, and that the Sumerian text depicts these godlike beings called the Anunnaki who come here from a planet called Nibiru that's on an elliptical orbit. Every 3,600 years it comes between us and Mars. It causes cataclysms because of the gravity and all the chaos. But that these beings came down here and inserted their DNA into lower primates and created this being. And one of the reasons why it came here was because gold is very difficult to find in the universe. Now, if that's the truth about the Earth only has that much gold, imagine that one of the reasons why these beings gave us this desire to have gold, why gold was so popular always early on, and it was a useless metal. So what if it was pretty? How come you could buy a house with bags of gold? Shouldn't you have steel for a sword or for arrowheads or something like that? Well, anything would be more valuable. Well, salt was very valuable. Yeah. But this is different because this is like a form of money. Like, why has it universally been regarded as valuable, like really early on? And what he said was that they realized that they could take these suspended particles of gold and put them in their atmosphere, and it would protect them because their atmosphere was eroding. And so this would be like reflective particles they spray in the atmosphere.
Like what Bill Gates wants to do, where he like blocks.
So this
out
is
the
what's
sun.
crazy about this. This guy wrote about this in like the 1970s. He wrote this, what is it called? The 12th Planet, I think. That was the first of them. I think he wrote multiple books on this, on the Sumerian text. But I think it was like the 1970s or somewhere around then, they were having this sort of symposium on what to do in the sense of like ozone depletion and climate change. Like, is there a way to suspend reflective particles in the atmosphere to block out some of the harmful rays of the sun? So that was their idea. So what this book is trying to say is the reason why humans are obsessed with gold is because like the aliens designed us to mine and get the gold. And then they would use that gold to protect their atmosphere. It's cool when you see Zechariah Sitchin too, because he's this like very scholarly looking gentleman with an awesome name. And he's like pointing out all these different things like the caduceus, the sign of medicine, like the universal sign of medicine.
Yeah.
He's like, that's the double helix of DNA. Whoa. That's what that is. That's why it snakes around like that. And he says, and it represents medicine in ancient Sumer. And it also, like, it's present in these very weird stone tablets. Some of these stone tablets have images of this like enormous being with this human-like creature on its lap, but the thing has a tail.
Whoa.
It's really weird.
Zechariah Sitchin, who's no longer living, he's deceased a few years ago, claimed to be an ancient languages expert. He was presented by his publisher and his publicist as a scholar of ancient languages. I don't believe that Zechariah Sitchin could read or translate any ancient language. It was disappointing at first because I thought he might be a kindred spirit. He was not. He's basically making up an alien narrative out of ancient Near Eastern texts, like Enuma Elish or the Gilgamesh epic. And his claim to fame, his original book is called The 12th Planet, where he describes his belief, based upon his alleged translation work, that the Sumerian tablets describe a civilization of extraterrestrials known as the Anunnaki, who came to Earth from a planet called Nibiru, and created human beings and or genetically modify an existing ape-like creature to create humans out of that thing. This is his narrative, and he has convinced millions of people this is the true history of life on this planet. Now, the reason that's demonstrably wrong is you can actually go look up online the term Anunnaki in all of the Mesopotamian texts that Sitchin cites. You will find that there isn't a single tablet that has the Anunnaki on Nibiru. You will find that Nibiru is actually described as Jupiter or Mercury or just a star, but no planet, again, out in the outer reaches of the solar system where Sitchin puts it. You'll never find the Anunnaki riding in a craft anywhere. You won't find all of the core ideas, or any of the core ideas, that Sitchin has for his mythology. So it's not very difficult to show that he's wrong. I've gone on a number of radio shows and basically just put it this way. How easy would it be to show that Mike is wrong? All you need to do is produce one line of one tablet that has one of these specific claims that Sitchin makes in that source, and Mike would have to go away. Mike is still here, and I'm very, again, you might say confronted, but I'm serious about it. I don't like when people are lied to, not just about what's the content of the Bible, but I don't like when they're deceived by the content, some narrative that comes from any other ancient text.
So my thoughts is the individuals that wanted us here to whatever work, whatever manipulation they did for us. They wanted us to have a system of measurement, but something that could not contradict, not giving us the full picture. So they gave us a limited scope where we can measure small areas, but we would never need the larger areas. We'd never need to be able to move out in space because we were engineered for a particular reason. And those stories, you go right back. Every civilization has similar stories. The Hindus have those same stories. The Africans with the Dogons,
Yeah.
I think, same story. All of these stories proliferate around the entire globe in the ancient traditions. But what did the Catholic Church do? They went through all of these areas and destroyed all of those books, destroyed all of that information. Why? What
Just
was
like the
purpose?
Taliban blew up the Buddhist statues.
Why?
Yeah.
Why did we destroy all of the Native Americans, all of their information? What was the purpose of it? There's a dumbing down that's happening.
Well, it's also a forced compliance, right? Comply with the new ideology. Whoever's in control, whether it's the Catholic Church or the United States government in the 1800s that prevented Native Americans from speaking their native language. Yeah, it appears our advancement happens very unnaturally. I think most biologists will agree that the biggest mystery in the entire fossil record is the doubling of the human brain size over a period of 2 million years. It's a very, very, very fascinating point. It's real. It's not debatable.
Doesn't it scream manipulation from an external force?
Something, right? Something. It screams something took place because it's an extraordinary something. And if it's the something that takes place that's responsible for the single most bizarre animal on the planet, the one that can manipulate its environment in a way that nothing contemporary can do, nothing alongside that lives with it in the same timeline is even close. Nothing's even remotely close. It's very, very, very different, but it's also extremely flawed for something that has such a high level of technical sophistication. If you were a super sophisticated creature from another planet and you needed some particular materials from our planet, and the Anunnaki story is all about gold.
Yes,
that they needed gold.
Fixing up the...
Yeah. The idea was that they were going to, and this is all from Zechariah Sitchin's work, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea was that they were going to suspend gold particles in their atmosphere in order to protect their environment.
Because they had abused.
Yeah. They had abused it. And I think there was also some speculation about volcanic eruptions, that volcanic eruptions had probably ruined their atmosphere as well. But they had the ability to do something about it. And the way to do something about it is to mine gold. And that they took us and they created us
from the hominids.
The reason why that's so interesting, why do you need gold? No one needs gold. If you're surviving, if you're a hunter-gatherer, why is it the number one method of currency throughout all human beings, all over the world?
Well, remember, they abandoned. Remember, for a long time, like if you're thinking about Italians, they talk about it's salt, the soul.
Yeah,
it was salt.
Salt for
salt
food, yeah.
was what we used for currency in exchange for the gold.
Right.
So where did the gold come? Why did we have an appetite?
Right.
For it?
Why?
If it wasn't placed into us, if it does not sustain us in any way.
It's very intriguing. It's very intriguing because it doesn't do anything. You can't make a weapon out of it. You can't make a tool out of it. It's too soft.
Did ancient aliens really put us here? Are they really our creators? Did they give us the technology that we have either now or in antiquity? Are they really the masters of civilization? Does the Bible or any other ancient text really describe extraterrestrials? Does it really describe beings that lived on and came from other planets using technology to get here? Or is there something else going on? I think, as bizarre as it sounds, Ancient Aliens as a show, and shows like it, it's not the only one, have a huge, vast reach into the pop culture. millions and millions and millions of people have seen not only just one episode, but actually follow the series. And it's really truth by anomaly. And the Bible gets drawn into that because it's an ancient book. It's not the only one. But if I can step in there and say, look, the people who are telling you these things or giving you these ideas, giving you these theories about human origins, they're lying to you. Another passage would be Genesis 6, 1 through 4. This is the sons of God, the daughters of men, who produce Nephilim and the giants. Sitchin is quite known for this. He merges together the sons of God with the Nephilim. He treats them as though they're the same character. But Genesis 6 describes spiritual beings assuming flesh. The most traditional reading is cohabiting with human women and producing as offspring Nephilim. I believe, and I'm certainly not the only scholar who would believe this, that the term means giant, because there are other passages that connect to Genesis 6. But the ancient alien theorist loves this passage for some reason because, well, sons of God sounds like an extraterrestrial to them. And they never ask the question about, are angels in the Bible really kind of described as beings that need to perpetuate their species, that need to eat, need to drink, again, have to expel and, hate their jobs or whatever? I mean, is this the way they're really described, as something being normative for them? And the answer, of course, is no, but they never really get to that question. And then once you have aliens in Genesis 6, 1 through 4, it's the aliens who create the Nephilim, and some ancient alien theorists will call them giants. Others will say, no, these are the men of renown, and that phrase is used in Genesis 6, 4, the great civilizers of antiquity, the really smart people that civilized the world, or that are responsible for building massive projects like the pyramids or Baalbek. And so this is why on a show like Ancient Aliens, you get a narrative that says, oh, look at this big object. We couldn't figure out how to build that, therefore it must be aliens. This is where it comes from. It comes from this passage, seizing on an extraterrestrial parentage for certain individuals who are called men of renown. Now, I don't, as a biblical scholar, buy into any of that, but it's a very familiar trajectory for anyone who reads a book by Zechariah Chen. They're going to get sort of sucked into this world, and they're going to run across this narrative at some point. I was invited to speak at the Bay Area UFO Conference, and I was invited to speak about ancient astronauts. I'm an ancient studies scholar, I'm a biblical scholar. This is great, he was on Coast to Coast, and that was a wonderful interview. Let's have this guy come out and do this. I wasn't vetted at all. In other words, they thought they were getting a believer. I am not, again, an ancient alien believer. So I went to the conference, and I basically did a lecture on Zechariah Chen. And I went to this conference and basically tore his work apart. There's really no other way to say it. And I tried to be nice about it, but I wanted to be firm about it as well, just dissecting where his errors were. I was asked to leave the conference. I didn't get paid. That was okay, though. I've never been invited back, nor did I expect to ever be invited back. But the great thing about the event was my second session, which happened before the one that got me in trouble, was a lecture on could Christianity accommodate a genuine extraterrestrial reality? When you take that topic, you have to get into things like, well, would Jesus have to die on other planets? How would aliens be atoned for? And so it was well worth the visit, and it was worth getting tossed out of the place to do it.
Wow, how incredible is this? I hope you guys are enjoying this, and I hope you're learning a lot. I want to ask you for a second to subscribe. If you're enjoying the content, share it, press that like button, slap it. Help this channel grow. Help the message of the good news of what Jesus has done for this world get out. You're a part of this community with me. I always say we, and really it's just me behind the camera, but I've got you guys as support, encouragement, and you're here for the ride, and I'm so grateful for you. So thank you for subscribing, thank you for liking, thank you for sharing the content, and thank you for being a part of this journey with me. Let's get back to ringing them bells.